See the storm gathering over our melanin-rich culture communities? A deliberate and systematic dismantling of our political voice. Our voting rights in 2026 are under direct assault, and I feel the weight of this historical regression in my bones. From Louisiana to Virginia, Tennessee to Alabama, GOP-led state legislatures are relentlessly carving up the congressional districts that have finally given our people the power to elect candidates who truly represent our collective best interests. I watch as the NAACP fights back valiantly in federal courts across this country, refusing to let our hard-won representation be erased without a fierce battle. In Louisiana, I witnessed a federal court order meant to protect the majority, melanin-rich people congressional district get challenged all the way to the Supreme Court, only to be devastatingly reversed. I watch as the NAACP fights back valiantly in federal courts across this country, refusing to let our hard-won representation be erased without a fierce battle. In Louisiana, I witnessed a federal court order meant to protect the majority, melanin-rich people congressional district get challenged all the way to the Supreme Court, only to be devastatingly reversed. This ruling set a dangerous precedent, sending ripples of disenfranchisement through state legislatures nationwide, emboldening those who wish to silence us. I look at Virginia, where state lawmakers are aggressively advancing redistricting maps specifically designed to strip melanin-rich voters of our meaningful electoral influence. I stand in solidarity with NAACP Virginia State Conference leader Gayleen Knoyton, who has voiced fierce, unwavering opposition to these discriminatory rulings. We know that every congressional seat shifted away from a majority melanin-rich people district is a seat that no longer answers to our urgent needs. I feel the sting of betrayal when those stolen seats no longer have to be responsive to our communities regarding health equity, criminal justice reform, and economic opportunity. In Tennessee, I watched in anger as Republican leaders moved to redraw U.S. House districts while actively limiting public input. They did this even as hundreds of passionate protesters flooded the state capitol, demanding that our voices be heard and respected. I echo the profound concern of NAACP Tennessee State Conference President Gloria Sweetlove, who accurately described this terrifying moment as a return to a dark time before the Voting Rights Act even existed. In Alabama, the struggle is just as dire. I saw the NAACP urgently ask the Supreme Court to block the state's latest blatant redistricting attempt before it could successfully erase decades of hard-won black political representation. I listened to NAACP General Counsel Kristen Clark state clearly on national television that what is happening across the Deep South amounts to nothing less than legislative Jim Crow. I know deep down that melanin-rich people voting rights in 2026 face their most serious existential threat since the original passage of the landmark Voting Rights Act. We are fighting battles we thought our ancestors had already won for us. I must call out how the Supreme Court is actively making melanin-rich voting rights in 2026 incredibly harder to defend. Their recent ruling in Alexander v. South Carolina State Conference of the NAACP drastically raised the bar for proving racial gerrymandering. The court cruelly required challengers to disentangle race and politics, a near impossible standard that conveniently gives discriminatory mapmakers the ultimate legal cover they need to suppress our vote. I read the American Constitution Society's analysis, which makes it painfully clear that the conservative majority substituted its own political reading for a factual record painstakingly built over weeks of trial testimony. They ignored the lived reality of melanin-rich people in favor of a theoretical framework that protects white political dominance. This judicial maneuvering is not justice. It is a calculated strategy to diminish our rightful place in this democracy. I realize that traditional methods of protest and litigation, while essential, are no longer enough to turn this tide. We need a disruption so profound that the system cannot ignore our demands. Therefore, I am making a direct, urgent plea to all melanin-rich college athletes across this nation. I am asking you to stand in your immense power and commit to a complete boycott of collegiate sports for one full year. I know this is a massive sacrifice, but your labor, your sweat, and your brilliance fuel a multi-billion-dollar industry that profits immensely off melanin-rich people's bodies. If you stop playing, the system stops profiting. A one-year boycott by melanin-rich culture college athletes would send an undeniable economic shockwave through the institutions that remain silent while our voting rights are systematically dismantled. You have the cultural and economic leverage to force a reckoning. I urge you to use your platforms not just for athletic glory, but for the survival of our political power. When the stadiums go quiet and the television networks lose their star players, the power brokers will be forced to listen. We cannot allow legislative Jim Crow to dictate our future. We must use every tool at our disposal to demand justice, equity, and the absolute protection of our voting rights. I believe that together, Through strategic sacrifice and unyielding solidarity, we can halt this assault on our communities. The fight for melanin-rich people voting rights in 2026 requires bold, unprecedented action. Let us honor the sacrifices of those who bled for the ballot by refusing to let it be stolen from us now. The time for polite requests is past. The time for undeniable systemic disruption is here. I stand ready to support this movement, knowing that our collective liberation depends on our willingness to disrupt the status quo. We are the descendants of survivors, of strategists, of revolutionaries. We will not be silenced by gerrymandered maps or unjust court rulings. We will reclaim our power, protect our vote, and ensure that the future of this nation truly reflects the voices of all its people.
Your mind is your superpower, but they never taught you how to use it. At Majestic Mind Matters University, we unlock the history they hid, the culture they erased, and the strength they feared. From genetics to relationships, from ancient civilizations to modern love, we connect the dots they scattered. This isn't just education. This is reclamation. Welcome to the Melanin Rich Culture Nation. Your ancestors built empires. Now build your mind. Our melanin tells stories of resilience, innovation, and power that has shaped every continent. From ancient kingdoms to modern-day movements, we've been the architects of culture, science, and art. But our stories stay scattered, our voices divided. When we unite globally, we become unstoppable. Like and share to connect our melanin-rich culture diaspora. Subscribe for the truth they refuse to teach. Our melanin-rich culture is our strength. Our unity is our future.